Today we are talking about multicam clips here in DaVinci Resolve. I've been using them quite a bit lately, and I'm going to show you how to get them set up and how to work with them here in Resolve. It's not as hard as you might think, so let's just get right into it. The first thing you need to know is that when you're using multiple cameras, I have camera 1, camera 2, and camera 3, and I'm also recording an external audio source up here directly into DaVinci Resolve. You need to keep in mind that we need a good point to sync everything up by. So I am recording scratch audio to camera 1, camera 2, and camera 3, as well as my audio here. You want a good sync point? I just do this. Boom, we have our good sync point to match everything up once we get into DaVinci Resolve. So with that in mind, let's jump in Resolve, and I'm going to show you how you can start to put together and work with your multicam clips, as well as some troubleshooting if you come across problems. So in DaVinci Resolve here, we're going to start off right in the Edit tab. Now you can work with multicam clips in the Cut tab, but honestly, I don't use the Cut tab pretty much ever, so I'm just going to do everything right here in the Edit tab. And I've been using multicam clips and angles a lot lately, so this is my process. There's going to be little tweaks and different ways you can do things too, but this is the process that I use every time that I'm throwing together a multicam clip with multiple angles and multiple audio files. First thing you need to do here in Resolve is to make sure you bring in everything that you've got. So I have 3 different angles right here in my media pool. I've got my 60D, I've got my C100, and I've got my 5D Mark IV, along with my dedicated audio recording that I recorded straight into DaVinci Resolve in the intro there. So the first thing that I like to do is sync up my good audio with one of my angles. Now you can use whatever angle you want. I like to use my main angle, which is this guy right here, my head-on shot. So to sync those up, first thing I'm going to do is select my good audio along with my video clip that I want to sync it to, right click, come down to auto sync audio based on waveform. Now this is the first reason why the clap in the beginning of your recordings is so important. It's going to give Resolve a great point to sync everything up for your video when you use this method. So now we should be all synced up. To double check it, I'm going to double click on my clip, play through a little bit of it, see how it sounds. Multiple angles. Resolve, work with multicam. Now what do you notice there? We're only hearing it out of one channel. At least I'm only hearing it out of one channel. To fix that, we're going to right click on our clip. I'm going to come to clip attributes. Under the audio section, we can see for my source channel, it only synced up the left channel, which is the side I'm hearing it out of. So I'm just going to go ahead and on my source channel, come down and click linked channel 1. Because the recording was a mono recording directly into Resolve, so we only have one channel, so we can just go ahead and click OK. The other thing you can do, actually coming back to that clip attributes real quick if you want, is to just change your format to a mono format, and then you only have one, you're good to go. So let's just use mono in this case. Either way, it doesn't matter. You can do it however you want. So now if I just double check my clip again, we're going to play through a little piece. Clips and just make it awesome. So there we go. We've got audio in both right and left channels now. The next thing we need to do is create the multicam clip. And it's as easy as selecting all of them, right click, create new multicam clip using selected clips. When you do that, you'll get this little window right here, start timecode. I just leave that how it is. For the multicam clip, you can name it whatever you want. I just call it multicam. The frame rate, I've made sure all of my cameras are at the same frame rate. So if this is different than your cameras filmed in, you want to make sure that that matches. Under the angle sync here, this is how is it going to sync up everything. So in this case, what I like to do is use sound because I don't have time code or markers or anything else. So I go with sound. Now it doesn't always do a great job, but I'm going to show you how to fix that if it doesn't do a good job lining everything up. And I find a lot of times I have to make some small changes anyway, so not a big deal, but we're going to tell Resolve use sound and try and sync it up the best you can. For the angle name, you can select whatever you want here. It doesn't really matter. This is the track name, and I always change those anyway, so you can use whichever one you want. For this case, maybe I'll just try clip name. Now, you do have more options to split multicam clips at gaps. I leave that unchecked. And detect clips from same camera source. I do turn that on, although a lot of times Resolve will put multiple clips from a camera in different tracks. And we can detect using metadata from camera number. So that's what I use, but you can use any of these other options if you want. And the last thing we can check on here is move source clips to original clips bin. Now this is going to take all the clips that we use for our multicam clip and put it in its own bin. So that way we stay organized and we know, hey, these video files or these videos are part of the multicam clip and it's in its own bin. So once you've got your options all selected, just go ahead and hit create. Resolve's going to do its thing. And boom, now we have a multicam clip right here. If I hover over it, we can see our different angles here. So now what we want to do is jump inside the multicam clip to check everything and see if everything's lined up the way it should be. In order to open the multicam clip in a timeline, just hover over it, right click, and say Open in Timeline. Now, when I open my multicam clip, we can see I've got my multiple audio tracks here, as well as my multiple video tracks. And if I just zoom these down here, we can see we have 3 different long clips, and we have 4 different audio tracks. And if we just want to double check and see how well they're lined up, I can just click and I want to zoom in on my waveform, which is another reason why it's so helpful to have those loud claps right in the beginning, because if I zoom in on my timeline, I can make sure that these claps are all lined up. Now, they may not be exact. If I had one camera, for example, that was filming at like 30 frames per second and 20 instead of 29.97, so they may not be exact, but they're going to be close enough, and you're only going to use your best audio, right? Where in this case, for my examples here, we're only going to be using one audio track as we switch angles. Now, you can use different audio from the different sources as you switch, which I'll talk about in a minute here, but for right now, what I need, this is pretty close and it's probably going to be okay. I'm going to just watch through a little bit of it and just listen in and see how it sounds. So let's check it out. We're talking about multicam clips here in DaVinci Resolve. So if you're filming with one, it sounds pretty good. Now, you can just leave your clips like this if you want. Now, I like to kind of modify it just a little bit. So I'm going to just zoom in on my tracks here so I can see the video clips. Come to my timeline view options. Click this guy so I can see which angles are which. Now, the first thing that I like to do is rename the tracks so I know what I'm looking at here. So when it comes to video, I know this is my 5D Mark IV. This track I know is my C100. And this track is my 60D. And what's kind of cool is when I name the track, the video track or the audio, it doesn't matter which one, the corresponding audio track in this case is going to have the exact same name. And this is going to be helpful when you're trying to switch angles and you want to go to a particular camera. Now, the angle number 1 track right here, I actually don't need this one because we synced up our good audio, but we could do it inside the multicam clip, but I already did that in my C100 angle, so I'm going to use the audio there. So I don't even actually need this angle number 1. I'm just going to go ahead and hit mute on that so I don't have to worry about it. So the next thing I like to do is just organize my tracks a little bit, and you can just come and right-click on them and move them up and move them down. But what I like to do is just open the index, close the media pool here, and in my index, I can just grab the track and move it around. So I like my C100 track up on top, then the 5D Mark IV, then my 60D. When it comes to that audio track that I'm not really going to be using, I'm just going to click and drag it down to the bottom. So that way it's kind of out of the way. And I am just going to rename it MKE600, which is the microphone I used. And one thing you'll notice, if you mute any one of these tracks, it's actually going to disable the video track too. So if you don't want to use one of these angles, you can drop the volume down on it if you want, or better yet, if you're just using one audio source like I'm going to show you here in this example in a minute, it doesn't even matter. You just want to leave everything as you see it now. Leave everything turned on, and you should be good to go when we start to work with our multicam clip, and I'll show you why in a second. So as long as all of your video clips are lined up and everything looks good here, you name the tracks, you put them in an order that made sense to you, you're good to go. We can actually go ahead and start editing with our multicam clip. So in order to do that, I'm going to need to create a new timeline for my project so I can put the multicam clip in it and start my edit. So I'm going to close my index, come to my media pool. I'm going to right click, make a new timeline, create a new timeline. We'll just call this YouTube video. I'll just add in a couple tracks here. We'll do 3 of each. I'm going to say an empty timeline. Now I'm going to use the project settings that I already have set up, but if you want to double check, you can just uncheck use project settings, uncheck that. Go to format, 1920, 1080, 2997 is good for me. Color, everything is set up good. I'm going to go ahead and click create. So now I've got a timeline that I can dump my multicam clip into. So I'm just going to click on my multicam clip and drop it into my timeline. Now, if we hover over our multicam clip, you notice, okay, we're not seeing anything. Like, what's going on here? And the reason we're not is because whatever is your top level track by default is what you're going to see in your multicam clip when you drop it in your timeline. So we need to change that. The first thing we can do is come on over to our viewers up top here, and we want to click on this guy right here. We want 2 windows open because we want to see all of our angles so we can switch back and forth. Next thing you want to do is come over to this icon, click the little drop down, and come to multicam. Now we can see all of my different angles right here, and the one that is highlighted red is the current angle that we're looking at. So because we put that audio all the way on the bottom for our audio track, and it had a corresponding video track that's all the way on the top, but there's nothing on it, that's why we're seeing a black screen. So what I like to do is start with the angle that I want to see most of the time. So I'm going to come down to my multicam clip in the timeline. I'm going to right click on it and come to switch multicam angle. Now you can see for the video, I can see what all my different tracks are here. And I know I want my C100 talking head shot to be my main shot that I start with. So I'm going to go ahead and click on C100. So now that C100 is the main angle for the whole multicam clip in my timeline. Now I want to do the same thing for my audio. I want to come down to my audio, right click, and switch the multicam angle. Now right now we can see it's selected on MKE 600, which is not the audio track that I want to use. I actually want to use the C100 audio track. So I'm going to go ahead and click on C100. So now I'm looking at my C100 angle in my timeline, as well as the audio that I linked up to it for my good audio. Now, by default, it should show you all of your angles right here in the window, but if you don't see enough or you don't have enough windows here, you can come down to this little button right here that says default, click on that, and we can change the number of viewers that we see. So for example, if I've got 4x4, we'd see 4 across the top and 4 down, and if I had all these angles, they would all fill in for me, and I can just watch my video and cut to the angles I want. So I'm just going to leave it on default now because I only have the 3 angles, so it works out perfectly how it is. So now how do we start changing between our angles to edit together our video? Real easy. So we're going to come back to the beginning of our video. Just going to get to where I have all 3 cameras in the frame. And all I'm going to do is play through the video, and I'm going to select my different angles here to change whenever I want them to change. Now, one thing you want to think about before you start changing your angles is, do I want only my video to change, or do I want my video and audio to change every time I change an angle? So if we look at these couple options right down here, these are going to help determine what's going to get changed when I click on my different angles. Do I want to change only my video, so I keep that same audio throughout the entire length of the multicam clip, which is what I want to do in this case because I had one good track of audio, and that's what I want to keep for the entire length of the video. So I'm actually going to use that. But if I had multiple cameras that were roaming around maybe, and I wanted to use the audio from those camera angles, I would use this one. And when I make the cuts, it would change the video as well as the audio so that the audio would stay with whatever angle I'm looking at. And you can also change just the audio if you wanted to do that. You can click on this option, and anytime I click on one of these, it's going to change just the audio. So in our case here, for my example, we want to use this one. I only want to change the video angles because I've already got a good set of audio that I synced up with my main angle, and I want that to stay constant or consistent throughout the entire multicam clip. So we're just going to start playing through my timeline here. I'm going to watch these windows up here, my different angles, and I can just click on the angle that I want to change to while the video's playing. So I'm live switching the angles while I'm playing back the video, and we can adjust them after the fact. I'll show you how to do that. But we're just going to watch it and choose our angles. Now, I'm just going to click on these guys, but you can also use your number keys to change your angles. By pressing 1, 2, 3, or any of the numbers based on the number of angles you have, you can make cuts and change your angles. So let's play through the clip and select some angles here. Today we're talking about multicam clips here in DaVinci Resolve. So if you're filming with 1, 2, or maybe even 3 cameras, I'm going to show you how we can get it into Resolve. Okay, so there, it's as easy as that. Just click in the angle you want while the video's playing back. And let's just watch it back real quick, see what it looks like in our main viewer here. If you're filming with 1, 2, or maybe even 3 cameras, I'm going to show you how we can get... Okay, so my timing might have been a little off, but we're close. So if I need to go back and make an adjustment, so for example, when I turn this way, right, maybe I should cut to this angle a little quicker, like right about there. I'm going to zoom in on my timeline, and all I have to do is grab my little handle here and pull it out to wherever I want that angle to change or to start to change. So now we've got this. Clips here in DaVinci Resolve. So if you're filming with 1, 2, or maybe even 3 cameras, I'm going to show you how we can get it into Resolve. And that's it. You just watch through your video, you change the angles as you want. It's as easy as that. Now, if you wanted to go back and make some changes to your angles, no problem. All you have to do is go to whatever clip you want. And let's say maybe in this angle, oops, I picked the wrong angle. I want to change it. Just select your clip, right click, come to switch multicam angle, and now I can pick any angle that I want. So let's say I wanted the 60D. Right? And now we have a different angle. And you can do that for any one of your cuts on any one of your clips that you made. It works for both video as well as audio. In my case, I want that good audio from my C100 that I synced up for the entire length of the multicam clip, so I'm not going to make any changes to the audio. So it's really easy to watch through your clip, change those angles as you're watching it. If you need to go back and make edits, again, you can grab handles and move it however far you want to make the clip the size that you want. You can select your clip, right click, switch multicam angle, pick whatever angle you want for both audio and video. It's really easy to go through and just make a rough cut of everything that you need. Go back and fine tune it a little bit if you change your mind about something, and then you should be off and running good to go with your multicam clips. So now let's say I need to go through and work on some color and some audio with my multicam clip. How do I do that? So the easiest way to work with your color is to do it inside the multicam clip. At least that's what I've found. Because instead of coming in my timeline that I'm currently in, that I made a bunch of cuts in, and coming over into the color tab and having to change over here, if I jump into the multicam clip, whatever change I make to my big clip will be applied to all of my little cuts that I've made. So I'm going to come to my multicam clip in the media pool, right click, and choose Open in Timeline. Now, anytime you need to make a change to your multicam clip, you can always open it in the timeline and see all of your audio tracks as well as all of your video tracks. So what I like to do is just do my color grading right in here. Let's say for my C100, I'm going to jump over into the color page, and I can see my different angles here. So let's say I need to come in here. We're going to do a quick little grade. So there we go, I got my little color grade on there. Now, if I click on the next clip, I can't see the angle below it, right? Because it's underneath a clip. So I'm sure there's a better workaround, but I just jump back into the Edit tab and turn off the top layer that I was working on, jump back into color. So now I just have these two clips in here, and I can work with these clips, do a little grade on here. I'm gonna move forward a little bit. And you'll notice when I come forward, then I only see the angle from my 5D because that one overlaps the other one. So I would start with that angle right there. Come up with a little grade. Okay, that looks good. I'll jump back into the Edit tab, turn off that layer, and then I have my final video layer here. So I'll just go ahead and grade this guy up a little bit. All right, that looks pretty good. Jump back into the edit page, and you have to remember to turn all these back on before you close the multicam clip. Otherwise, you're not going to see it in your main timeline. It's going to be disabled or turned off. So I'll turn those back on. And then in order to close the multicam clip, I like to just make sure I've got the stacked timelines open here in my timeline view options. And I could just click on here and go back to my regular video. So now, if I just make our little windows a little bigger here, now I'm all color graded, right? So if I toggle the color grade on and off, good. All right, we got this angle, good. Maybe even, and checking out our 5D Mark IV angle, good, there we go. So our color grade comes through for us when we do it in the multicam clip. You do it once, you've got your big clip, you don't have to worry about all those little clips in your timeline. Now, when it comes to audio, you may want to do audio inside of the multicam clip if you are changing audio angles. In my case, I'm not. I have the same clip of audio through the entire thing. So for me, I would just do my audio editing right here in my main timeline. I would just jump into Fairlight and do any audio editing that I need to do right in my main timeline. Now, let's say maybe you run into some problems, right? Maybe things don't sync up exactly. Maybe they're on too many tracks. How do we deal with some of those problems? So let's take a look at this other project where I had multiple angles that I want to sync up. Now in this file, I have a lot more clips because it was a longer video. And I also have some audio clips here you can see in my media pool. Now I've already gone ahead and synced up my good audio with the angle that I want, which we see on screen here is my C100 angle. I always use that as like my base angle, my base talking head. So I've already synced those up. Now I need to create a multicam clip for all of these files. So I'm just going to select all of them. And once I have them all selected, I can right click on them and say create new multicam clip using selected clips. Again, we'll get our multicam clip window here. I'm going to say multicam troubleshooting. I'm going to sync by the sound because I did give a good clap in the beginning to sync everything up. Angle name will leave sequential and leave the rest of this stuff as it is. I'm going to go ahead and click create. And I'm actually going to uncheck this for now just so I don't mess anything up, but I'm going to leave the clips where they are instead of moving them into their own bin. I'm going to go ahead and click create. Okay, so the multicam clip has been created. Now I want to open that up in the timeline and take a look at what it actually did. And if I hover over it, you can see all those different angles up there. So we know that's not right because I didn't have 15 different angles. There should be 3 different cameras and long clips in each track. So I'm going to right click, open in timeline. Now, if I just zoom my entire timeline by using Shift-Z, we're going to see that all of our video clips got to put across a whole bunch of different tracks. And sometimes this happens. Resolve can't sort it all out and organize it exactly how I want it, especially when you have a lot of little clips. So how do we start to organize this a little bit? Well, we want to combine our tracks and just put everything where it's supposed to be, right? So I know, for example, the 5D IV clips here are all the same camera. So I just want to drop them down together and put them all on the same track. And to do that, I'm just holding my Option or Alt key, selecting the clip, and then using my arrow keys. So I'm trying to match up the file names because I know they're all supposed to go together. If I have ones like this where they overlap, I might put my playhead there and just drag them up because if I just bump them, it's going to accidentally overwrite, this clip right here, which I don't want it to do. And if you hold your Shift key, that'll make sure you go exactly up and exactly down when you're dragging your clips around. So you just need to do a little manual cleanup and a little manual organization here. So now that we started to clean it up a little bit, we have a lot of extra tracks and stuff going on here, right? So I'm just going to right click on any one of my tracks and say delete unused angles. Right click, delete unused angles. Boom. And it kind of gets rid of all that extra stuff that we don't have anything in. Now I'm going to just further refine it a little bit, and then we should be good to go. So again, I've kind of organized a little bit. I've got an extra track in there. I'm just going to right click, delete unused angles. And now we kind of have all of our video clips in the right spots, so we think. So I'm going to zoom in on my waveforms here. Now, it may do a good job syncing up, and sometimes it doesn't. It's just hit or miss, and depending on how good your audio is and how well Resolve can find the different parts to sync up, sometimes it works well and sometimes it doesn't. So let's just zoom in on a part here and see what it's looking like and sounding like so far. We're going to get right into working with this Fairlight panel, and we're going to... Not too bad, so I'm going to just come ahead a little bit, try another spot, see how it sounds. And this thing is going to come alive. So I'm going to come down to my, just mute all of the audio, we can hit that. So that works pretty good. It actually did a really good job lining things up, looking at our timeline here. And I did put a clap in some of them. I think I forgot to in the first one, but we can see it lined it right up. So now when I'm organizing the tracks here, I'm just going straight up and straight down in order to get the same camera have all of its clips in one track here, because that's what we need to be able to switch angles for our multicam clips. So this actually looks pretty good. Now, sometimes if you have a lot of short clips and say one long clip, or you don't have one long clip for the entire length of your recording, Resolve has a little bit of trouble trying to put those smaller pieces of clips on top of, other clips. So it really just depends on your setup. I mean, I always try to do one recording regardless of what I'm doing, whether it's, like filming a worship night I did with multiple angles. I try to keep it one thing recording the entire time, so that way there's a good track that I can try and have Resolve sync everything else up to. So in this case, it did do a pretty good job. It was a little bit messy to start with, but once we organized it, we're good to go here. Now, if you did need to move stuff around, we can always zoom into our timeline, and you can always grab a clip and just move it a little bit. You can move it by dragging it. I'm going to undo that. You can move it by selecting it and using your comma and period keys to bump it frame by frame if something's off just a little bit. You can make any kind of adjustment you need to inside the multicam clip, but get that set up really good and spot on what you want to start with, then bring that multicam clip into your timeline for your actual project. So if this looks good, which I think it does, I'm just going to go ahead and close the multicam clip timeline. And now in my example here, I'm going to take my multicam clip, drop it in my timeline. It's going to take a second or two for those waveforms to get created and cache. But up in my top window here, I'm going to just come and select my multicam view. Now you'll notice we have angle 2, 10, and 13. And the reason those are called that is because we forgot to rename the tracks. So if you're not sure what it is, you can always just open it back up. And you can select it in your timeline, right click, and choose open in timeline. Or we can do the same thing from our media pool. Right click on the multicam clip, open in timeline. So I'm just going to change the names of these angles real quick. So I changed my track names. I also put them in the right order that I wanted to, like we talked about earlier. I'm going to close the multicam clip timeline. And now in here we can see my names have been updated. Select my multicam clip there. And now I didn't include an extra audio track, so we only see our 3 angles. I know this is my main angle. So I'm going to set my timeline to that angle, switch multicam angle, C100. And there we go right there. Looks like I'm fixing something on my face. And now you can just play through it and select your angles while you're playing through it. So if you run into issues, you can always open up that multicam clip in its own timeline, make any adjustments you need to, adjust your color grade, move things around, shift things if you need to. Do whatever you have to do to get that multicam clip set up perfectly, so then when you drop it in your project timeline, all you have to do is sit back, hit play, switch angles, and enjoy making your video. So there you have it. That is working with multicam clips here in DaVinci Resolve in a nutshell. So if you're still doing it old school, where you've got multiple tracks with your different video angles in there and you're cutting and moving and turning on, you don't got to do that. Try out the multicam clips here in DaVinci Resolve. It's going to save you a lot of time, and honestly, it's pretty fun to edit your videos by just selecting the angles that you want. That wraps up this one, guys. Thank you so much. I hope it was helpful. If it was, drop me a comment and let me know. If you have questions, again, comment below. I try to get back to all of you the best that I can. And with that said, I'm off to make more vids, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.